Van Pelt. I am study advisor for the Master International Development and Research Master International Development Studies. And together with me here today are Esther Miedema, a lecturer in the program, Gabrielle, Daniel, and Iris. So two students and also the registrar of the Master is present here. So a full team to hopefully answer all your questions concerning the Master or Research Master International Development Studies. What do we have in mind? First of all, I will give the floor to Esther, who will say a few words on the content of the program. You might have read a lot about it already on the web, but she will go into more detail and also stress more on the differences between both the Master and the Research Master in IDS. Then we will ask two students to come to the stage as our graduates of the program to give their thoughts, both positive and negative, to give you a good idea on how they experience the program. Then I will come back after that with some practical matters. We will address things like missions and application for the program, as well as the preparatory program for those of you who need extra training before getting into the program. And finally, we hope to leave a lot of room for questions. You're a large group, so we'll try and dedicate a substantial amount of time to that. So I propose we continue as soon as possible. But not before getting to know a bit of who's in the audience right now. Who is currently studying a bachelor in social sciences at the UvA? So who's in social sciences at the UvA? Okay, who is at another university in the Netherlands? Yeah. And who is doing another program at the University of Amsterdam? Not social sciences. Which programs? Humanities. Economics. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And students who are currently at the HBO? One hand. Which program are you in? Okay. Other HBO? No. And who's from abroad? Few hands. Where about, may I ask?
London.
London?
Argentina.
Argentina, wow.
France.
And?
France.
France. Okay, welcome. I think just to get an idea also on the questions later on what I can expect, I will now give the floor to Esther to take it away on the content of the program.
Thank you and welcome again, everybody. I see a few familiar faces. Like you said, I'll say a little bit about the content of the one-year master and the two-year master. Hopefully give a bit of impression or an idea of what the main focus is of the one or the other and why you would opt for the one or for the other. Can you hear me in the back? Microsexual problem. Maybe this? It helps when you switch it on. Okay. Okay, so I have a few slides and they just help me to structure what I'm going to say. And first of all, I'm just going to click through these. The similarities across the two, the one-year master program in international development studies and the two-year master program. The similarity is that in substantively, they're pretty much very similar. The one-year master is, as the name suggests, it's 1 year, so it's far more high-pressure cooker. You do everything in 1 year. And if you take the two-year research master, there's just a bit more time for the different phases of the program to go through those. And you spend more time in each part of the program. That's a real nutshell description of the difference. They're similar in the sense that they're taught there's a strong link between education and research for both of the programs. And that IDS within the University of Amsterdam departs from a fairly strong collective normative framework around sustainable development, inclusivity, and thinking around social justice in governance, for example. And that's the same for both of the programs. What's also similar is that we have a mix of Dutch and international students across both programs. They're both in English. It's a multidisciplinary approach that we apply within our research group itself, and that also translates in the education that we provide. So each of us, many of us come from different disciplines, but we jointly provide the program. But you might get a slightly different angle depending on which lecturer, which professor you get. So this is multidisciplinarity, which also characterizes the field of international development studies as a whole. There's a focus on more critical analysis of the field of international development studies, but also an attempt to move beyond that and to go beyond criticism to the constructive engagement that's mentioned on the slide. So how could you address problems differently rather than simply critique them? And in each program, so the 1 year and the 2 year, you have a number of thematic electives that you can choose from. And there's another slide on which electives those are. Then differences, I'm just going to run through this again like this. I already mentioned the duration, which is fairly obvious. The 1 year master, and I'll get to the details more in the next slides, you go through the whole cycle of going through the substantive material, developing or learning more about methodology, actually writing up a proposal, doing your research, and writing up your research all in the space of 1 year. In the research master, you have more time to dwell on the research and think about the methodology, and you have more time to develop your academic profile. So there's an extra year of sort of further development, scholarly development. There's also a difference in scale. So the 1 year master tends to be quite a bit bigger than the research master. So this year we have just over 65 students in the 1 year master program and just over 20 in the research master program. So that's a fair difference. The difference in scale in the larger master program, that gets broken down to smaller groups. So it doesn't mean you're always moving with 60 students, but there's just a difference in scale in the plenary sessions. And I mentioned the second part about the academic or the research career preparation for which you have more time in the 2 year program. Just a bit more detail about the respective programs. The electives first. So this is subject to change, but this has been the past 2 years. We've had a broader range of topics to choose from, and the electives at the moment are that everyone takes those in the first semester of the first year, and we choose 2 of the electives in principle. So we have economics of human development. There's an education, development, and social justice track. Urban perspectives on development. Environment, development, and conflict, gender intersectionality and development, critical development theory and social movements, and finally mobility, society, and security. And they also reflect some of the key themes that we engage with in our own research within the research group, which forms the basis of much of our teaching. Okay. Quickly, the 1 year master program. So it's 60 credits. The first semester is a core issues course, which takes you through basic issues in international development studies. We have the 2 electives that I mentioned and the research methods training, and that prepares you for the fieldwork that you would do in the second semester. Second semester starts off with the fieldwork. You write up your thesis. There's a policy and practice seminar, which engages also with the practice and what ideas in practice, and how would you translate knowledge, academic knowledge, into practice, for example, and thesis seminars to help you write up, prepare you, so guide you in the writing up the thesis. The 2 year program, so year 1 has very similar structure, but you get 2 methods electives, you get a mixed methods course, and you focus more on, there's also a course on ontology and epistemology in the program. And that's the whole first year. And only in the second year do you go on your fieldwork. The second year, like I said, is more also preparation of your personal profile and your career. your scholarly profile. So you also do some portfolio work. I'm sure Daniel also might be able to say something about that. The fieldwork period, you have then thesis writing. You write an article, often together with your supervisor, not necessarily. And you have an academic and professional skills center. So there's more to that. Okay. Again, similar across the two programs is that you always do field work. So that's why there's a required with an exclamation mark. And this is forms a crucial part of the 1 year and the 2 year program. And we see it as fundamental to gaining this experience in conducting research, becoming an independent researcher, setting up your own research and going through that whole process. In the 1 year master, you have 8 to 10 weeks to do this, to do your field work, to gather your data. And the 2 year master is usually about 3 months. Some people take longer, but 3 months is the average. It's often linked, but not necessarily. It's often linked to staff projects or research projects that staff are involved in. So the lecture might be one of the lectures, for example. And that helps them, that you just have the additional support in connecting you with relevant institutions in whichever country you are hoping to do your research in. But there's also many who do an individual project, and that just takes a bit more effort and initiative on your side. But both options are possible. People who know me tell me, no, I wave my hands too much during lectures as well. Expenses is the final point, is that students are in the past, some students have been taken aback by the expenses of doing field work, but this is an additional cost you would need to take into account. So this is, and I think the average budget that's recommended you keep in mind is around am I saying this right? It's safe to say 3,000 euros. I'm sort of looking at Gabrielle and Danny. That's safe. Time for questions, but you have to save an amount of money to do your fieldwork, to buy your ticket, accommodation, etc. You have to take this into account. Your final thesis and that whole research trajectory you do in collaboration with a supervisor. So they'll help you as you're writing up your proposal, together with the course lecturers, support you as you collect your data in the field, and support you in the writing up of the thesis itself. It should be obviously based on your findings that you gather during your field research, and as it's also mentioned here, whilst your supervisor will guide you, it's always that this would be your baby, so it requires a lot of independence as well. The writing time, so again, we see the difference. For the 1 year program, you have about 12 weeks, and the 2 year program, you have 4 months. Again, a bit more time. Just some of the examples of the kinds of research that people have been involved in the past years. And I won't mention them all, but this is just to give you an impression of the kind of work that our students have been doing. So you see in the current batch, we see a lot of people working on environment issues, and on migration and refugee issues, education and peace building, a lot on gender, and sexual reproductive health. So you can see these different tracks and resonate with some of the titles up here. The Research Master Portfolio, and that's part of that 2 year track, is what you develop in your second year, and that's really part of that career development, the profile development that you would be doing. So it provides the opportunity for students to develop themselves in say, the kinds of professional skills that you wish to develop. Many students do an internship as part of this and develop certain skills through that internship. Some take part in and support ongoing research projects, say within the University of Amsterdam. And there's many that also work with doing internship with an NGO. Part of that portfolio and also part of that second year of your research master program would also be writing up and doing a presentation at a conference related to the particular theme that you researched. It can be related to your thesis topic, and that's the ideal situation. It's not an essential requirement. Okay. I just want to look at my notes, see if I've not missed something essential. Perhaps a final point to make is that in terms of the difference between the one-year master program and the two-year master program, is like I said, the first year, the one-year program is a far more intense program, and you go through the phases quite quickly, and so you're on your feet all the time. And the two-year master program has just that more time. You also have to like research for the two-year master program because you're spending so much time looking at methodology and doing the actual research itself and the writing process. So you have to enjoy that process as well. Some people, or it's seen this as a sort of a preparatory step to doing then subsequently doing a PhD. That's possible, but again, many graduates have gone on to do very different kinds of work. So it's not necessary that every student who's done a research master program always ends up in a PhD program afterwards. It's just there's more time and more focus on the whole process of doing the research. That's it for me.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think the next slide already showed who will be our next guests. Danielle and Gabriel, please. On by one, or however you prefer it. So I asked two of the graduates of the program to give you an idea on how their experiences are. Also, not that we are trying to hide our current batch of students, but most of them just left to the field. So that also makes it that we need to look also for our alumni. And I think it's also a great way because they had the full experience of a full year, or in case of Daniel, 2 years. So they can share their thoughts on every phase of the program that was just discussed. So I asked them basically to answer 3 questions. The first one is on how you got here. So what was your entry before you came to the program? Then how did you experience the program in terms of how the group size, the diversity in the group, all these kind of things. And finally, where did you end up now?
Hi everyone, my name is Gabriel Ramirez. I graduated 2 years ago from the one-year master program. I come from Colombia and I came here specifically to do the master, and I'm still here. Why I came here in the first place? I was working in development-related issues in Colombia, but I thought it was my next step to go into a master's. I was looking, in different parts, and I thought that the UVA had a very structured program, and what I thought I wanted to do was focus more on the kind of NGO side. And what I found on the internet said, okay, maybe the UVA is a good match. I underestimated the costs of being here as an international student, but in the end it worked well. I got a scholarship and it worked well. Once I decided to apply, I thought, okay, I should look more into what the professors are doing. That's maybe an advice for you also, to look into what the lecturers and the professors are doing here, so that you have an idea on the type of topics and the kind of focus that they have. I found one lecture from Professor Jita Gupta, who was the main professor of the faculty, and she was explaining on a cup of coffee, where it comes from, what the costs are, the real costs behind having a cup of coffee here, who gets impacted, where the water comes from, is the paper cup getting recycled, the whole effect on how much a €1 coffee cup really costs to the world. And I was mind blown and said, okay, that's the program that I want. I got here, I found myself in a nice group of students. We had a smaller group of, we were like 35 or 40 at that time. And it was very nice. It was diverse in terms of backgrounds, experiences. There were people who have just graduated from a bachelor program, but also we had someone who had been working for 10 years or so. So it was very interesting in that sense to see different backgrounds in experience. people from different parts of the world, although it was still very much centered in European students, but the experiences that everyone brought to the table were very interesting, and that makes also every group unique. I also liked a lot the lectures, the style of having like small group discussions, a lot of work groups, a lot of debates, and making your opinion count and see what the other is thinking. I also like that approach in education, which is different in other places in the world where you just sit and have a lecture and that's it, final exam, whether you make it or not. Then when you need to choose your fieldwork and your thesis, and at that point I said, okay, I've changed my mind, I don't want to go back to Colombia to study development locally. I want to see who's making decisions about development that impact Colombia. And that's why when I decided to study Dutch development policy here in the Netherlands, we had to make some changes to the program to make that happen. But eventually, the fieldwork allows you to understand a lot about a certain topic that you're really passionate about. And I want to stress that really passionate about, because you're going to be sweating, dreaming, crying this topic for at least 6 months. So be prepared for that. It's emotionally challenging, but it's also very satisfying to get to the last bit of the thesis, presenting it, and find that you actually know way more about certain topic in development. Finally, like on I graduated. I was already working with the university in the program, and I still wanted to make more changes to the program and stay for a bit longer. I work as a study advisor, as a management advisor. Now I'm here still at the university in the social sciences faculty. And I really think that I learned a lot of content during the master, but I think I learned a lot also about how to think in systems, to think about complexity in a lot of settings. That's something that I really got from the masters. How to understand that the effect of one little thing can have an impact on many others, and try to think ahead on what we want as societies to work and whether or not we should be getting advice and from whom. And I think that's basically my take on it.
Hi you all, how are you? My name is Danny. I just graduated from the Research Masters. Can you hear me? Okay, yeah. I just graduated from Research Masters. And my experience at DUVA. So how did I get started in this program? I actually studied environmental, economic, and policy as my bachelor, which is not that much related to development studies, but I did take some classes in development studies and I really enjoyed it. I was like, okay, I think I want to do a master's in development studies. And I looked at some programs and I liked the UVA's program because of the research, and it's 2 years because I actually didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, 2 years is perfect because then I can think for 2 years kind of what to do and figure out my life. So that was great. That's actually the reason why I did the 2-year master's instead of the 1 year, which I think is way more intense. That's kind of what I heard. But you will be done in 1 year on the other hand, which is also great. So it kind of depends on your preferences. And so then I came to the UVA, and one thing I didn't like that much in the beginning, but this changed, was the course electives. There was like only limited amount of electives, but this has changed because you saw, I think, on one of the slides, there's a lot of electives. So I think now I would really enjoy the different electives. Before they were a little bit more narrow, but I think now there's really nice kind of different topics to choose from. And what else? I also enjoyed the group size because as a research master's, you're like with 20 other students in a class. So that's very small classes, but you also have classes with the 1-year students sometimes in the electives, for example. But in general, I really enjoyed that you know the people that you work with, they're your classmates, your friends, and you're really working and studying with these people for 2 years, so that was really nice to get to know each other very well. And that was very nice, and also there were a lot of group activities, and the assignments in the courses were often essays, I think. That was the key component, so be ready to write a lot of essays, write a lot. I think that was one of the big parts, but also presentations, so that's kind of the things we also did. And yes, and then we also did fieldwork I did, for example, fieldwork for 5 months. That was quite long, and I actually didn't know first what to do, so I took different electives, I tried to figure out, and I didn't like the elective that much, and in the end, I found a really good topic that I came up kind of on my own research, kind of looked something up with my supervisor, and then I really enjoyed that. So I kind of went with my own project. I created my own research project and pursued that for my master's thesis and for my fieldwork, which is really great. I really liked it. And that's actually one of the things I liked about the program, because you really had the independence and autonomy to kind of pursue your own interests. So that's what I liked specifically about the 2-year program. And that's also related then to the portfolio that Esther mentioned. You have the opportunity to do an internship or something, and I actually went to a summer school because I was really interested. I wanted to learn more about theories, so I went to a summer school on decolonial theories, so I learned more about that. And also some of my classmates, they did like research internships, or they went to Oxfam to do an internship at Oxfam. Maybe some of you know about that.